So in a nutshell, it's all about territory, maps, space, the body, art, humans, data, and other living creatures, and wrapped into politics. So who has questions for those presentations, for both of them? I know you want to have some food, but yeah.
In English or French?
English.
So it's not a question, it's more like a, thoughts after hearing especially Michèle's and then Antti's presentation. First of all, with Michèle's, I thought of about your research question. The first thing that came to my mind was more Hubert Reeves, the Canadian astrophysicist's book, Poussière d'étoiles, where he explains how we're all made of the same materials that make the stars or whatever materials you can find in space. And secondly, especially with mining, which is relevant to both your works, I've been following some, let's say, online courses on TVA 21 Academy, and they're talking about deep sea mining. And if we make a parallel between space exploration, which, I mean, we basically don't know much, and the oceans in our own planet, we basically know what, maybe 5%, as much as it's been told. We only know 5% of the oceans, and then now some countries prepare for going into mining the deep sea, and they don't really know what will await us in terms of the environments, etc.
I don't know if it's working. Yeah, yeah. Actually, deep sea mining is like a very analog space to look into, because it's also, the sea is also a Commonwealth resource, so it has so many similar issues as who can actually exploit this soil, and it's also very remote, and it's also mediated. So the relationship we have with the depth of the sea, most of us didn't go there. So it's also this kind of strange relationship with, okay, we're sending machine, we're sending probes that go into these spaces. And it's also about scarce minerals and what we do from it. So there is so many like parallels that can be made with this environment.
It's actually a really interesting question, and somehow I like it wraps around a little bit. I don't understand French really well, but I mean this kind of colonial approach of the lands and materialities is it's not so much. It's quite a practical thing, that because this kind of offshore law approach applies to space as also to the deep waters. So these kind of elements are like lucrative environments to do big business, and they are both full of resources. And that's one thing why most likely the billionaires want to go to the space. Not so much that they are, partly maybe because they have been always fantasizing it, but it gives them huge opportunity to claim huge resources to themselves. So it has this kind of environment, and then there is this question about other life and materiality. There's material agency in many ways that we are just like starting to learn in many approach in that sense, like these kind of new materialistic approaches and theories are supporting that kind of idea, but also about life itself. That we are just like maybe beginning to understand life in that sense. We have, of course, this kind of hubris that we know everything now, but in retrospective, we have never known everything during our lifetime. So there's going to be a lot of things to be considered, and the life is actually, it can be even more important resource, because there's already has been like over 10 years programs that are like trawling and harvesting life and doing metagenomic mapping, and then taking these extremophile elements, genetical elements that you can use for transferring medicine between the biological barriers and stuff, for example. So there's a lot of possibilities to monetize and patent. So the biological realm, the biopolitical approach is really important when we are talking about sea and maybe with the space. I don't know.
Also, just to bounce back again, great question. we opened the talk with Luis Campos talking about Lynn Margulis. This one is like the first page of my notebook. And I was looking at this video and film about the work of this great scientist. If you don't know her, please look. And she was basically in this very random beach somewhere in the United States. And she was like, life is a verb. And what I am standing on now, this slack of mud that looks like nothing, is actually the beginning of everything. And then she really like dive into this cyanobacteria and like all this stuff that we actually don't know, like the stuff of life that actually indeed like we only start to understand. And I think it links also back to this idea of dust and what is within us that is also within space. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both for such great, inspiring talks. I could ask a million questions, but I'll stick with one. Sorry? Slowly, sorry. Thank you both for your wonderful talks, and very inspiring, and many things. I would ask a million questions, but I have one for Michèle, which is your title for your work, which is The Pursuit of Finitude. Could you say a little about that?
Yeah, so the pursuit of it started as mining the sky, but then I felt like it needed this kind of subtitle. And the pursuit of finitude, it has two things. The first one is the pursuit, so it's the verb, which is, to me, the main problem, and the conclusion of all my problematic that I was showing, is that mining asteroids seems very far as a reality by now. But what matters is the direction. And to me, within the word pursuit, there is really this idea of where are we going and what is the actual plan long term and what new potential society or which kind of material, how do we want to extract them, what would be the impact on Earth, leaves behind the word pursuit. And it's really this idea. Maybe we're never gonna mine asteroids, but what matters is the direction in which we're going, and should we maybe start from now, like rethinking new kind of possibilities for the industry, let's say. And then finitude really also came from looking into mines and how they just left kind of like this hollow body. I would really like to hear about this actually in Finland. But yeah, what is the life of a mine when it's gone? And in the context of an asteroid, well, then it's not a hole that you're gonna dynamite in the ground of Earth, but then it's more like a solid, let's say. But then it also has this idea of, at some point, it's gonna be finished. What is left behind? Is it workers that don't have work anymore? Is it market contraction? Is it more dependence to some kind of specific companies who actually can have access to this mineral? So that was behind the title, The Pursuit of Finitude. And to me, it's a bit antagonist, and I liked it. Yeah.
That's actually the kind of thing that you say is the thing that why I think that artists should be in these kind of processes and thinking, because those time frames and scales and the out of human sensorium approaches are so difficult to grasp and understand even through this kind of science popularization that we have to explore them with all of the potential ways to do it. When I was in the ESA, when I was doing the Piri Healing, I was in this interstellar conference for 3 days, and there was speculations from theology to actual like mathematics, how we can expand to an inside of our own galaxy system. And they made like these kind of mathematical models in this kind of yearly competition in European Space Agency that it takes 93 million years for 0.2 speculative light speed, like motherships, and then spreading on the exoplanets. 93 million years. Our own system. And then there's billions of them. I mean, the scale, that's the scale. if we are like species that goes to the space, we have to think about that kind of scales and times. And then we have to think about the approach. Now we are approaching space like military or Navy project protocols, harvesting materials. But if we as a humanity, as a species, evolve outside of this planet, it should be way more diverse, way more thought out. Of course, we are in baby steps now. I mean, there's, in my perspective, Finnish summer huts circulating near space. We are not space in that sense. There's maybe 1,200 people who has been in that layer. A couple of people has been in the moon, I mean, Apollo program people. So, I mean, we are just like in the beginning, so it's good to think about that. And artists are one way. Artists can approach that also differently, and it's a really important question. Do we colonize the space, or do we cohabit it with the other life that we take with us and maybe see there also?
There is actually one very easy counter-argument, let's say, to, for example, some people would say, oh, but if we manage to mine like one asteroid and we're gonna get so rich, like the amount, the scale of the richness of these resources, it's so grand that it's gonna save the planet. My answer would be, if we look into history, this will not happen. When the Spanish arrived in Hispaniola, the amount of wealth on the world almost tripled. I don't think this really changed and like solved hunger in the planet. So it's also this thing, and I was really inspired by Louis' presentation. Like, how do you look into history to like bring back these learnings that we already got? And it's possible on Earth, and also to do these trainings underground and like almost fake, but actually not fake it. It's really bringing a lot of new insights.
Yeah, I was thinking that it's also inspired by Louis with a previous conversation we had. What is the driving force? And it's where I include the culture as such. And currently there is a dominant narrative, well, mostly dominated by NASA / Hollywood / the so-called new space, that they were other narratives in the past that are more or less put aside, and there are other narratives that can be brought up, and I think you guys are part of a solution. So thank you so much for your presentation. I have to cut it now. I know every one of you wants to go to the buffet, but we have 2 or 3 more little things to say. So thank you very much, Michèle. Thank you, Antti.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna.